Between 1928 and 1945, the Construction Bureau of the German Navy created on its drawing boards 36 different U-boat models, numbered in Roman numerals from 1 to 36, usually consisting of a basic design, letter Type 1A, Type 2A, Type 3A, etc., as well as more specialized variations like Type 2B, 2C, 2D, and so on. Out of the 36 models, 6 were fully developed and mass-produced. The subject of this video, the Type 9, was designed for long-distance missions. A total of 193 of such boats in 5 different variations were delivered before and during the Second World War. The versions A, B, C, and C40 resembled each other in all central features except effective range, which was gradually extended from about 10,500 nautical miles in the early version to almost 14,000 nautical miles in later versions. The Type 9D was specifically created for operations in the Indian and Pacific Oceans and had a range of more than 23,000 nautical miles. Also, it could carry 4 torpedoes more, 26 in total. Fortunately, 2 Type 9 U-boats are on display in museums. This video is mainly about the Type 9C.
Although the Type 9s never represented more than 12% of the total U-boat fleet, they nevertheless accomplished 37% of all the sinkings achieved by German U-boats during the war. A Type 9C would average more than 100 days at sea for each patrol. They did not operate in packs, but typically individually as lone wolves, and usually they operated against independently routed ships in more distant zones where there were no escorts. And the commanders of these boats tended to be older men who embodied the virtues of maturity. Commanders would be on their own to make up their decisions about what kind of targets they could attack or avoid. Discretion was also an important part of being a Type 9 commander because the Type 9 boats were more vulnerable. Being larger, it took longer for them to dive. They were more sluggish, would have much more trouble eluding anti-submarine weapons used underwater, which is a reflection of the fact that U-boats really operated best against unprotected individual ships.
Extra torpedoes were loaded for these long-distance operations, and meticulous attention was paid to provisioning. Each Type 9 was totally self-sufficient.
Now, when we left port, of course, we used every little nook and corner to stash provisions in there. And you see some of the provisions hanging from the so-called ceiling. The hams, the sausages hanging there. Crates on the bottom with eggs and lemons, potatoes. That was all fresh food that we needed to eat first before we went to the canned goods. Frankly, personal hygiene was non-existent. We didn't pay too much attention to it. Of course, we had no bathing facilities, except occasionally we could turn on a water hose and rinse ourselves down with salt water, with seawater. We couldn't do that very often. The opportunity just didn't arise. We were issued perfume by the gallons almost, and we took that along. That was supposed to relieve the odor a little, and a substitute for water, we rubbed ourselves down with perfume, and it was called 4711. It was a very, very famous perfume. Of course, we didn't use that much of it. We preferred to take it home to our mothers and girlfriends. It was a neat present. To this day, I really can't stand the smell of 4711.
U-505 was captured by the U.S. Navy in 1944. 250 feet long, 22 feet wide, weighing 1,100 tons, this boat had only one purpose: to destroy. Looking at it from the outside reveals almost nothing about what made it work. Inside, it is a claustrophobic tube crammed with weapons and machinery. torpedoes. These half-ton underwater guided missiles were the U-boat's primary weapon. They were stored and launched from 2 torpedo rooms, one at each end of the boat. "25 to 30 men would live crowded among the torpedoes for up to 3 months at a time. On the surface, 2 9-cylinder diesel engines drove the boat up to 18 knots, with a range of 11,000 miles. Underwater, electric motors took over, running off batteries located under the floor. But they had less than a quarter the power of the diesels. Submerged, the boat rarely went faster than 2 or 3 knots, with a range of barely 70 miles. Nor could it stay down long. 20 hours was about the limit before the batteries ran out and the crew starved for oxygen. At the center of the boat, the conning tower, and below it, the control room. A confusing maze of controls for steering, diving, and surfacing. It took about 9 months to build a boat like U-505, and it cost roughly $500,000. Compared to any other warship, it was cheap and quick to make. But it was built to attack. Its only defense was to hide deep in the ocean. There, its survival depended on its pressure hull. Not visible from the outside, the pressure hull is the submarine's only protection against the ocean. A long tube of circular ribs covered with steel plate. It's all that stands between the crew and thousands of tons of seawater. To destroy a submarine, it takes just one break in the pressure hull. The ocean does the rest.